maybe you're already aware of a fantastically interesting new campaign by Virgin Atlantic. You may have been transfixed by it if you've seen a clip of it. Let me tell you all about it. Virgin Atlantic is now allowing male cabin crew and pilots to wear skirts and female counterparts to wear trousers so staff can express their true identity at work. And the changes won't be limited to Virgin Atlantic staff either, in a signal that the days of passengers being referred to as Mr. and Mrs. are coming to an end on flights. The carrier has changed its ticketing system now to allow gender-neutral markers. Virgin released an advertisement announcing the change, and I'm delighted to speak to the director, Samuel Dweck, this afternoon. Samuel, good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Great to be on, really excited.
It's lovely to have you on. Now, I've watched it. It's beautiful to behold. It's the most gorgeous-looking commercial. And then you suddenly realise what it is you're being sold. Because at the moment, as you start to watch, you think, oh, this is Virgin. Obviously, they're very beautiful people in it. They look gorgeous. It's a beautiful kind of ruby lipstick red, this uniform. It's super. And then you suddenly think, hang on, what? Who's wearing that? What's he wearing? What's she wearing? What are they, of course, wearing? What on earth is going on? And you find yourself kind of, I suppose, swept into it. So the thing that really intrigued me about it was, what was your brief when you were given this commercial to direct? What did Virgin Atlantic say they wanted from you?
Well, the brief was really open, and when I got it, I was so excited because it's really a dream brief. It's such an amazing new policy that they've enacted, and to have a campaign that celebrates this change and gives a platform to gender non-conforming people, it's really a dream project. And they were kind of open with, what the film could be. And for me, I just thought, well, it needs to be a celebration. It needs to be something that, is as fabulous as this policy change. And for me, that had to be a dance film. It had to be something that was full of life and movement and really showed off the iconic red and burgundy Vivienne Westwood uniforms.
I mean, you've been famous for many of your commercials and many of your films, one of them or several of them for Little Mix, and you're renowned for a sort of theatrical, baroque sort of beauty that you bring. So it looks like a sort of opulent kind of sometimes Eastern Oriental painting that bursts into life. I've been absolutely beguiled by your work in the past. This is similar. It could be, couldn't it, a rock video or pop video?
Thank you so much for your kind words. Yeah, I mean, my kind of origins in filmmaking are from music videos, especially like big pop videos where it's all about 5, 6, 7, 8 choreography. So I really wanted to bring that element of, life and movement to this film. So in many ways, we approached it as a music video. So it was a kind of interesting take on a commercial, but I think it works really well for the ad, and it really celebrates the policy and celebrates the people who are in it, which I think is, the most important thing.
I think thoughts used to be enormously segregated. So you'd think of men and boys who dress as men and boys in traditionally male garb. You think of women and girls who dress as women and girls in traditionally female garb. And then you might think of transvestite, often men who like to dress in ladies' clothing but might very often do it privately. Then you think of transsexual individuals who might be transitioning from one gender to another gender, who might have worn the clothes traditionally to one gender and now wearing different clothes. But this film seems to show an altogether different sort of fluidity, where you have what looks like blokes wearing dresses who are doing it mainly for the kind of enjoyment, the fun and the pleasure of it, would you say?
Well, I think every person is different. There are some people who might present as more masculine looking, but genuinely feel that they are, more feminine inside.
Oh, has he frozen?
This is really important because it allows them to express their identity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi, did you lose me there?
Yeah, I lose you for a second, but not for long, so it didn't matter, Samuel.
As I was saying, I think everyone's different. And for some people, this policy is really important because it allows them to express their true gender identity, regardless of how they look on the outside.
Yes.
But also, I think it is important that people do get a choice because, you know, some people might not necessarily identify as transgender, but if they're non-binary or gender non-conforming, they should be allowed to wear clothes that they feel comfortable in.
I think that's exactly what I was trying to say, but without necessarily the exactly right lingo about gender non-conforming, non-binary. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that there are so many different sort of gradations and shades of this, aren't there? And that, I think, is what I found so compelling and so interesting, because it looks like a beautiful tapestry of many more sorts of different people than one ever imagined even existed in the world, I think.
Yeah, the world is really changing. And, you know, these days, you know, far more gender identities than just male and female, or, you know, trans male or trans female. There's, you know, non-binary. And I think we might even see more gender expressions come up in the future. And I think that should be really celebrated and encouraged, because the more people feel comfortable expressing themselves in individual ways, you know, the happier they are, and the happier they turn up to work. And ultimately, we want to create working environments, or, you know, traveling environments that are positive and encouraging and uplifting to everyone, from customers to staff.
So I'm imagining that this was not one of your shoestring budget productions. It certainly doesn't look like one. So I'm imagining that when a company directs really a funnel of cash at a particular project, they have to take it seriously. So those who might want to dismiss this as a PR thing, a publicity-seeking thing, you know, nobody's ever really going to do this, you're not going to see an obviously overtly traditionally male pilot wearing a dress, that's never going to happen, you know, this is just for the ad, it's not true, it's not real. I would doubt that to be the case, simply because of the scale and the funds directed at this. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a very serious policy change, and I think, you know, it started in response to the requests of staff. You know, gender non-conforming Virgin Atlantic workers asked for this policy to be changed, and the company listened and responded and enacted it into policy. And I think that's really amazing. It's really difficult for LGBTQ plus people to be heard, and for something as formal as a uniform policy change to be enacted by a major company shows, you know, that times are changing and people need to be represented how they feel.
And do you find that a great percentage now of the work that you do involves this particular topic and the way in which people want to be free to portray themselves or to do whatever they want to do in the way that they want to do it? Is that now being much more incorporated into the work that you do?
In some ways, yes. I think that often a lot of my projects don't have, you know, a queer or LGBTQ brief, but I like to champion those people from my own, you know, as my own prerogative, as a queer identifying person. And then you get briefs which come in which really want to celebrate that, whether they're for Pride or for LGBTQ policy changes. There definitely is a growing shift, I've noticed, that really, you know, is beginning to understand how the world is changing and wants to represent that on screen. And I think that's a really beautiful thing and something I'm really happy to be a part of.
Do you think, therefore, that there's a generation maybe just growing up now that won't even question it, because won't even ever have seen this absolutely rigid and completely stringent pigeonholing that we were all shoved into before? They won't expect it because they won't have seen it?
I really hope so. Wouldn't that be such a wonderful world we live in, where no single person grows up feeling that they can't be comfortable in the skin they're in? I think the more people feel open and free to express themselves, the better the world we live in.
And it's interesting because Virgin have also said, you know, in conjunction with your commercial, they say that they won't be referring to passengers as Mr., Mrs., Master or Ms. anymore. So I'm imagining what they there, or just hello, will do pretty much, won't it? You don't always need some kind of label or sobriquet wherever you go.
Well, I think it's about choice. People can still use Mr., Mrs., Miss titles however they choose. But for some people who are gender non-conforming and might not find that title best represents them, there's now more options. And life is about choice, and the more choice, the better. So I totally support these policy changes.
Well, it's been a delight to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. That's Samuel Dweck. He's the director of this fascinating new commercial. I'm not trying to sell you a Virgin an Atlantic uniform or even a flight on an airline. That's not what I'm here to do. But you really might want to check it out, just because it's a whole new world, I think. And to lots of people, a brave new world, and to lots of people, a very enchanting, attractive, inclusive, fluid, quite remarkably exciting new world. So you may want to check it out. Doesn't mean you have to think that. You can think whatever you like, but you may want to have a look.